You're watching Camnet TV, not just another channel, and welcome to our world news. The headlines. Government releases 5.2 million kwacha towards the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. President Edgar Lungu not inspirational in safeguarding national morals gears. Copper prices improve despite negative shocks of COVID-19. In international news, Refugees face rights abuses in their Mediterranean journey. And in sports news, Zanaco Football Club has been awarded 3 points. Do join me for the details shortly after this break.
Msika is here. We have you all covered with just 150 kwacha. You can advertise every day from 17 hours to 18 hours. For a 30-second ad, get the benefit of selling your products and services on Msika. For more details, call our marketing department on +260 953 995099 +260 962 444-726 or +260 971 177 467. Email us on info@camnettvafrica.com. Terms and conditions apply.
With the details, I am your anchor Liseli Kanyanga Mobanga. Gears Initiative Zambia has commended President Edgar Lungu for the quick action taken to relieve former Education Minister David Mabumba of his duties following social media reports of his infidelity action. Gears Initiative Executive Director MacDonald Chipenzi is, however, concerned about what he terms as double standards being deployed by President Lungu and government in general when it comes to such issues of immorality. Mr. Chipenzi says President Lungu has not been inspirational in safeguarding and inculcating good national values and morals, accusing him of selective application of justice. He notes that some ministers have committed not only the same moral sin, but have broken the provisions of the Penal Code Cap 87, Section 177 of the laws of Zambia, yet have been accommodated, while others have been instantly fired like Mabumba.
We received the dismissal of Honorable Mabumba, David Mabumba, with a lot of excitement, in the sense that leaders must learn to lead by example. Leaders must have morals above others. Leaders must be able to resign on their own when they have done something that is against the code. It is only that the president is also not reliable on these matters. He has applied double standards on these issues. You remember that the Penal Code is very clear under Section 177, where such kind of things are prohibited. But we had another minister, Mr. Scharwe, who was circulating such nudity pictures. And we had Sande Chanda, who also circulated nudity pictures. But they were not disciplined for their behavior. We have these corrupt ministers arrested for corruption. They are still walking the street, which is more detestable. The morality, what Mabumba did, or the corruption that has sent so many people.
Meanwhile, the Independent Churches of Zambia, ICOS, has urged members of the public to let go and forgive former General Education Minister David Mabumba in a matter regarding the leaked pornographic material. ICOS President Bishop David Masupa has to this effect advised the public to desist from sharing the materials circulating on social media and avoid corrupting the morals of innocent citizens. Meanwhile, Bishop Masupa says leadership is not only about qualifications but the moral standing of someone, hence the need to ensure that a background check is done on people that aspire to be leaders. We have more in this report.
Very disappointed with the news which has gone viral, and that is depicting a minister who has been charged, first of all, with the moral conscience of the nation. Why do we say moral conscience of the nation? You know, in schools, that's where the shaping, the morality of a child begins from. Children spend more time, especially during school days, to those who have found this to be something they can have pleasure in. You cannot have pleasure in the nakedness of your father. You cannot have pleasure in the nakedness of your grandfather or that of your brother. This is why Ham was cursed by God, because he opted to laugh at the nakedness of his father Noah. And these other two went backwards with a cloth and they covered the nakedness of their father when he was in a state of drunkenness. It is on that biblical foundation that I want to counsel those that are doing this, that we call upon you to stop circulating this pornography, because the more you do it, it is not.
The National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPEZ, has urged the newly appointed General Education Minister, Dennis Wanchinga, to contribute positively in his ministry. NUPEZ General Secretary Nelson Mwale said this in an interview with Camnet TV News when he issued his welcoming remarks to Mr. Wanchinga. Dennis Wanchinga took over his predecessor, David Mabumba, who was on July 29th fired by the head of state, President Edgar Lungu, after pornographic materials of him circulated on social media.
As a union, we want to welcome our new Minister of Education, Honorable Dennis Wanchinga, back to the Ministry of General Education. And we are optimistic as a union that Dr. Wanchinga is experienced enough. He's as experienced as his predecessor, and so we expect that Dr. Wanchinga will continue from where his counterpart left. We realize that the Minister of General Education has currently a lot of challenges, especially when we look at the fight against COVID-19, where the Comrade Mabumba tried, and we are optimistic, like I earlier said, that Comrade Dr. Wanchinga will continue from there. And having said that, I want also to mention that the Minister of General Education is actually home for Dr. Wanchinga. He's simply back home because he worked there for a very, very long time. All he needs to do is to ensure that he brings ourselves, the major stakeholders who are the unions, closer to him so that we give him support. And I can assure him that we are more than ready to give him the support that he may need, because at the end of the day, he needs that support from the unions as stakeholders.
Government has released funds amounting to about 5.2 million kwacha to pay suppliers of washable face masks used in the prevention of COVID-19 for 5 provinces. Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, DMMU National Coordinator National Coordinator Chanda Kawe says this follows the completion of verification of supplier details and quantities supplied in 5 provinces, namely Western, Luapula, Northern, Muchinga and Eastern. Mr. Kawe explains that government has released about 1.3 million for Western Province, Luapula 369,000, Northern 1.5 million, Muchinga 590,000, while Eastern Province has received 1.5 million. Speaking to journalists in Lusaka Thursday, Mr. Kawe further disclosed that government has released 1.6 million to the Ministry of Youth and Sports for various activities, including payment to youth groups that supplied masks and for the welfare of the street kids. He says the payments released so far are part of Phase 1, adding that Copperbelt, Northwestern, Southern, Central and Lusaka provinces will be included in Phase 2.
I wish to announce that 5 provinces auditing have been verified by the auditors, and government has since released funds to pay all the suppliers of the masks. And the first provinces that have been verified and the money that government has released, one is Western Province. Government has released 1.330 to Western Province for the payments of the masks. Government has released funds to Luapula Province, 369,180,000 kwacha to pay the supplies of the masks. Government has released further money to Northern Province, 1.45670 to all the suppliers. Muchinga Province has received 590,000 kwacha. Eastern Province, 1,470,000 to pay all the suppliers. The Ministry of Youth and Sports, government has transferred 1,627,000 for various activities, partly for the face masks that the young people are engaged and for the street kids. Government further engaged 3 market associations, Avema Zambia, Natimas and Zanamaka. Government has since released 600,000 to all the 3 market associations to pay all the traders that supplied the masks to government. Further, government had engaged the women cooperatives within Lusaka and outside Lusaka. Government has further released 800,000 kwacha to pay all the women cooperatives that had supplied the masks within Lusaka.
Mines and Minerals Development Permanent Secretary Barnaby Mulenga says the mining sector has generally performed well in the first quarter of 2020 compared to last year in the same period. Mr. Mulenga says the copper prices have risen despite the effects of COVID-19. The PS was speaking when he toured a local gemstone processing company in Lusaka Thursday. Meanwhile, the PS says government supports diversification within the mining sector, away from copper to minerals such as diamonds, gemstones, among others.
Copper, the mainstay of Zambia's economy, has not been impressive in the past years, forcing government to think outside the box. Government, through Mines and Minerals Development Ministry, has been advocating for diversification in the mining sector to include minerals such as gold and other precious stones. Mines Permanent Secretary Barnaby Mulenga says government supports initiative in the sector that support mining and processing of minerals. Speaking when he toured a gemstone processing plant in Lusaka Thursday, Mr. Barnaby Mulenga says the initiative is good as it will supplement government's effort both on job creation and economically.
Yes, I would like to correct the impression that we don't place a lot of premium on the gemstone sector. We do as a government. And what I would like to therefore indicate is the fact that we will support this company because it's in line with what has been articulated in the 7th National Development Plan, which is the fact that the government shall encourage value addition. So this is how we will support them. We will ensure trade facilitation because the rings and other gadgets that we'll be able to produce from here will be marketable not just in Zambia but across the world. And therefore we'd like to see to it that we, as a ministry, we support them, working together with other government agencies like the Ministry of Commerce, Zambia Revenue Authority, and indeed Zambia Development Agency, just to make sure that this business.
Meanwhile, Mr. Mulenga says despite the shocks of the COVID-19, the copper prices have appreciated on the international market, stating that the copper prices have gained in the first quarter of this year compared to the same period last year.
Is obviously also affected by the effects of COVID. But what we've noticed generally is that I'll start with, say, the copper sector, that for the first half of the year, the copper sector performed actually better than the first half of last year. We had roughly about 420,000 metric tons produced compared to about 397,000 tons of copper last year. So what you're seeing is the fact that actually there's been higher production in the first half of 2020 relative to 2019 for the same period. But they are also facing challenges in terms of wanting to make sure that they keep their employees safe. So some of the issues that have been happening, if you've been following, has been the issues of how do they...
Meanwhile, Mutinda Jewelry and Gemstone Processing CEO says the company, once in operation, will employ over 200 workers.
Close to 60 people, just. So 60 Zambians, yes, so that we could be rotating and give them time to rest and all that. And we have built the upstairs part is just a restroom for someone if they're tired. They have rooms to sit and rest. And then they can start a shift and all that.
Sharon Kalimbula, Camnet News, Lusaka.
The National Development Coordinating Committee, NDCC, a grouping of government and multi-sectorial stakeholders, has supported the rescoping of the implementation plan of the 7th National Development Plan in the face of the negative impact of COVID-19, among other factors. Finance Minister Dr. Walyangandu says the negative impact of COVID-19 has filtered through the economy by way of health shocks, domestic economic restrictions and lockdowns and revenue losses. He says initial estimates indicate that the pandemic has affected the 2020 budget through revenue loss of more than 17 billion kwacha, while government spending has increased to more than 9 billion kwacha. The minister says these developments have severely affected the implementation of the 7th National Development Plan. And National Development Planning Permanent Secretary Chola Chavala says the rescoping of the 7th National Development Plan is intended to prioritize programs that will be included in the 2021 budget for the implementation during the remainder of the plan period 2021.
The National Development Coordinating Committee, which is a grouping of government leaders, primarily permanent secretaries, and civil society organizations, the private sector, academia, and other stakeholders, and is chaired by the Secretary of the Cabinet, is meeting for 2 days, and the meeting commenced today. It was officially opened by the Minister of Finance, Honorable Dr. Walyangandu. During the deliberations, I think one of the issues that came out was the negative impact that COVID has had on the Zambian economy. And in this regard, the members of the NDCC endorse the position that government has taken to rescope the implementation plan of the 7th National Development Plan. In this regard, there will be reduction in some of the programs, due to the pressure that has been put on the economy. And of course, there were also remarks from the cooperating partners who assured of their continued support to Zambia in its implementation of the 7th National Development Plan and also in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Ministry of Health presented a report to the committee discussing the impact of COVID. And the permanent secretaries of Ministry of National Development Planning also made presentations with regards to the rescoping of the implementation plan.
For now, we take our first set of commercials. Do stay tuned as we have more interesting stories lined up for you.
I have used Oracle Pure Glycerin for 2 years now. It has really worked for me. It has cleared all the black spots on my face. It has restored my skin beauty. It also smoothens the skin. Try Oracle Pure Glycerin for perfect skin. If it's not Oracle Glycerin, then it's not Pure Glycerin.
Stay home, stay safe. Times have changed. With the advent of the coronavirus, Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company would like to advise its esteemed customers to avoid visiting crowded places. You don't have to move to pay your water bill. You can do it in the convenience of your home. You can pay your water bills through Zanaco Zapit, Stanbic Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, and FNB. You can also use Airtel, MTN, and Zamtel Kwacha mobile money transfer services. For any inquiries to report a fault, please contact our customer service on +260 211 251 571, +260 975 618 618, and toll-free line 5957, Zamtel only. You can also simply email customerservice@lwsc.com. This public announcement is brought to you by the Lusaka Water Supply and Sanitation Company. Water is life. Sanitation is health.
You're watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. We welcome you back to our news. Zambia has recorded a total of 41 COVID deaths and 98 COVID-19 related deaths, bringing the total number of deaths since the COVID-19 outbreak to 149. Updating the nation on the status of COVID-19, Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Dr. Kennedy Malama says the country has recorded 306 new cases in the last 24 hours. Dr. Malama says the country is recording such high numbers because people have relaxed in observing health regulations, adding that government is working round the clock to ensure that lives are saved. He has since reminded the nation to take care of their health by observing the health guidelines.
In the last 24 hours, Zambia has recorded 306 new cases of COVID-19 out of 1,243 tests done. That gives 25% positivity in the people we tested in the last 24 hours. This brings the cumulative total of COVID-19 cases in Zambia to 5,555. The 306 new cases include 122 people were identified through our healthcare facilities. You can see that our healthcare facilities will continue picking COVID-19 cases. And these screenings were done in Lusaka. We picked 93, Kitwe 17, Mpika 3, Ndola 3, Chingola 2, Kafiwe 2, Chinsari 1, and Mongu 1. We also picked 104 individuals whom were identified from routine community screening in Lusaka 96, Kafiwe 4, Nakonde 3, and Kalabo 1. In addition, we had 52 contacts to those who are already known to be COVID-19 positive. And all these 52 came from Lusaka, within Lusaka. We had 16 truck drivers in Nakonde who tested positive to COVID-19. 10 healthcare workers screened in Lusaka. We also had 2 people who were brought in dead to the University Teaching Hospital mortuary, and on swabbing them, we picked COVID-19. Again, we would want to stress that when we say in the BIDs we found COVID-19, we are not saying the cause of death 100% is COVID-19. What we are doing is to conduct further investigations, talk to the family members, and look at a number of other factors before we can classify the cause of death, whether it's due to COVID or it's associated or related to COVID-19.
Voting in Limulunga Western Province, Luwena and Katete Ward by-elections in Chiengi District of Luapula Province were conducted today, Thursday, 30th July 2020. 3 political parties are participating in these by-elections, including the Patriotic Front, PF, the National Democratic Congress Party, NDC, and the United Party for National Development, UPND. The by-elections was necessitated by either resignation or death of civic leaders. We have more in this report.
Voting in Limulunga Ward by-elections in Western Province, Luwena constituency, and in Katete Ward in Chiengi District of Luapula Province happened today, the 30th of July 2020. The by-elections in Chiengi were due to the death of the area councillor Harrison Lengwe. Here are some of the occurrences in Chiengi by-election where United Party for National Development UPND supporters are cheering. According to information on the ground, voters are observing health guidelines such as the wearing of face masks, washing of hands, and maintaining of a social distance in order to prevent the further spreading of the coronavirus. UPND National Secretary Gertrude Imenda updates Camnet TV of the situation in the Mulunga Ward by-election in Western Province, Luwena constituency.
30th of July is the day that the voting is taking place in the by-election here in Mulunga Ward, as well as the Stoya Ward in Luwena constituency of the Mulunga district. So far, as you can see, I think the turnout is good. So far, the turnout is good because you can see it's almost 12 hours. But you can see there are still some queues, which means the turnout so far is good. But we are not able to estimate the percentage. We have to wait and see what happens in the afternoon. Because so far, the fact that the people are in the queue, it means that the turnout is good. And it is very peaceful. There has not been any fracas or any scuffles or any kind of hostilities and so on. But of course, there were some attempts by some of our friends to try and not play according to the rules, like trying to hang around and try to vote. One person wants to vote for a number of people and so on, because that's what they promised them. You know, they were distributing mealie meal. I received a phone call or phone calls at night around 03 hours that our friends, the Patriotic Front, were distributing mealie meal and the money. Unfortunately, we were handicapped with the transport, and in any case, there was nothing that we were going to do. So because we just said we should try and protect our voters.
Only 3 political parties are participating in these by-elections. First being the ruling Patriotic Front, second the National Democratic Congress Party NDC, and third the United Party for National Development UPND. Constance Mwemba reporting for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
The Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD, has celebrated its 30th anniversary in a colorful ceremony at their party secretariat, graced by their party president, Dr. Nevers Mumba, among other party members. MMD President Dr. Nevers Mumba says the party will work hard to secure its victory in future elections and bounce back to power. Dr. Mumba also pledged to be an all-inclusive party beyond 30 years. We have more in this report.
Never seen anywhere on the continent of Africa. Before the referendum could be held, Dr. Kaunda called it off and accepted MMD's demand for multi-party elections. The then Article 4 of the Republican Constitution of Zambia was repealed, allowing for the formation of other parties. Dr. Kaunda signed the bill into law on 17th December 1990. This day remains etched on my mental mind because at 9 hours that day, Dr. Kaunda had called for me to meet him at State House. I was a young evangelist of only 30 years of age. I was conducting a gospel crusade in Woodland Stadium when I was summoned to State House. I had no idea what the urgent call was all about until I was ushered into the president's office. It is then that Dr. Kaunda mentioned that he was about to make a huge declaration that afternoon at Mulungushi Hall and needed God's strength and guidance. We held hands and prayed for a prolonged period of time. Little did I know that after that prayer, a new party, the MMD, would be formed officially, and that 22 years later, I would become its 4th president. MMD became a political party on the 21st of December 1990. The Registrar of Societies issued a registration certificate to MMD on the 4th of January 1991.
And moving on in other news, the National Arts Council of Zambia has assured youths in various art disciplines of benefiting from the 30 million kwacha empowerment given to them by government. Arts Council Director Maka Chipindi has since advised artists to come up with viable, convincing plans which will allow them access the funds. He explains that the funds will be given in form of loans aimed at making sure that more people benefit. Mr. Chipindi says the council is waiting for President Edgar Lungu to officially launch the program before disbursing the funds. During his last address to the nation, President Lungu announced that government has given youths a sum of 30 million kwacha for various art disciplines. More in this report.
It has been almost a month now since His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zambia, Edgar Chagwa released an amount of 30 million kwacha for the artists, with the intentions of empowering the artists who took to the bush to protest over many injustices currently happening in the country, citing high unemployment levels caused by lack of opportunities and corruption of those in office, as well as the freedom to freely express oneself.
Yes! Yes! Yeah. So we have decided to protest from the bush. We are protesting from the bush because the streets in our own country have become so dangerous for the people of this same country.
Since the 30 million kwacha was given, the artists have hoped to be engaged by the Ministry of Tourism and Art so that they know how to go about the process. Some artists have revealed to Camnet TV the National Arts Council has not communicated on the process or how it will be carried out. National Arts Council of Zambia director, in an interview with Camnet TV, says the council is waiting for His Excellency to officially launch the program. Makachipindi says the money will be given to the artists in form of loans, as they will be able to remit back for other artists to be able to benefit from this program.
Regards the process, remember, when you have money like that, you have to develop guidelines on how the money will be accessed. What are the conditions, what are the terms, who's able to access that. So we've been processing, we've processed the guidelines already. They are ready, we've done the application forms, everything we are ready. We are ready actually to start. So the only thing that we are waiting for now is for the President to launch the scheme. Remember when he announced the scheme about a month ago, we started working. We've been working with Ministry of Finance, we've been working with Ministry of Commerce, CEC, Ministry of Tourism and Arts obviously, and other partners, and we're prepared. And now what is remaining is for us to launch. We have a launch next week, Friday, at the government complex. Unfortunately, it's an invitation-only event. I know many artists want to attend, but after the launch, then we'll open the call. The plan we have is that applications can be submitted in each district of Zambia. There are 116 districts in Zambia, so artists can apply through that process, and the applications will come through SACA, and then they'll be assessed, and then the money will be dispersed. These funds are loans. It's very important that we say that they are not grants, which means they will prioritize artistic businesses, not show proof that they can generate money and pay back.
He says the first phase of this program starts on Friday, the 7th of the month of August. Mr. Chipindi added artists need to prove they are able to pay back the loans that will be given to them through ideas they will present to the National Arts Council.
So we are on course. The public should know, the artists should know that there's been no delay, and we are working. The funds, you remember when the President said I've accepted the proposal, that's what the President said, the text. So there's been work in the background that we've been working on. We've been working on this project since March with our minister. And, on Friday next week we'll launch two things. We'll launch the empowerment scheme, and we're also launching the Presidential Choral and Arts Festival, which we hope to have in September. So these activities are planned, and we are ready to run with them.
Constance Mwemba reporting for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
The Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia has warned unscrupulous members of the public against using prescribed drugs to treat COVID-19, as it will only result in shortages of the medicine in the country. Organization President Jerome Kanyika says he has been receiving reports from the general public of such a nature, which he notes makes sad reading. Mr. Kanyika says people should ensure that they report such cases and get treatment by qualified personnel in respective quarantine centers.
Quarantine comes with underlying fear among people during this devastating period of the coronavirus pandemic. Humans don't like to be thrown out of their routines. For instance, the thought of being separated from the rest of the community can be devastating. But at the end of it all, health is wealth. This situation has, however, placed some Zambians in compromising decisions by using initiatives for fear of being quarantined. The Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia has told Camnet TV of having been receiving reports of some members of the general public consuming unprescribed drugs like hydroxychloroquine, vitamins, and many others. Pharmaceutical Society President Jerome Kanyika notes that the behavior is likely to place the country in drug scarcity for people who may be in need of them.
We have received a lot of reports about people who are now buying the medication for themselves, where they are buying azithromycin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, or other kinds of medicine for them to prepare and put as a prevention or as as a medication for the treatment of COVID.
Mr. Kanyika urged all Zambians to undergo testing for the coronavirus and get treated if need be, as it is the wisest thing to do.
It's not good at all for members of the public to start buying or self-medicating themselves without them being talked to by the medical personnel. So I'll urge the members of the public who are in this habit of now going to buy these medications for themselves for the purpose of start self-medicating themselves in case of COVID. I think it's not good, and we are just causing an unnecessary shortage of medications for the people who may be in need of the drugs.
Reporting for Camnet Television in Lusaka, Zambia, Namwinga Mwinga.
The civil society organization CSOs have called on journalists across the country to take up the role of advocacy in raising awareness on the importance of nutrition, seed politics and climate change. The CSOs, comprising of Palam Zambia, CSO Sun Alliance and Caritas Zambia, have urged the media practitioners to always convey messages in simplest terms to avoid leaving anyone behind. The alliance said this during a 2-day media training workshop at Lusaka's Catholic Secretariat.
This media training was very critical because in advocacy, the media are a very critical component for us to get our message out there for people to really know what exactly is going on in terms of policy, in terms of government decisions, and what's really going on as well in other places in the country. And in terms of COVID-19, currently, yes, we're definitely going to see nutrition going down and malnutrition going up because of issues like access to food and the fiscal space just around in the country. People do not have access to money, people are losing jobs. All those things are definitely going to trickle down in terms of access to food and good nutrition.
And one of the challenges, of course, I think has been that there's limited information or capacity building in terms of what these journalists or the media people have. And also for them to really get involved or interested in some of the thematic areas, they need to understand the key issues. And so we thought of organizing this training so that we can bridge in that gap in terms of seeing how best they can also support our different engagement on issues to do with climate change, nutrition, and also seed politics.
We organized a workshop for journalists, basically to train journalists in advocacy work around seed issues, nutritional issues, and climate change. These are just part of the programs that we do in the agriculture sector. The whole idea of the workshop really is to build capacity within the journalist fraternity on how they can, contribute in the advocacy work that we do and disseminate information to the communities that we work with, as well as to policymakers, to kind of influence the policy direction that we have as a country in terms of how do we look at the seed sector, how do we look at nutritional issues and climate change in the country. So we feel journalists, the media houses, are a big stakeholder in this part of the work that we do in disseminating information. And ideally, if we can partner with the media, I think our work will be more effective in terms of influencing the policymakers in their decision making, and also for the policymakers to hear what the communities want, basically, in terms of their livelihoods.
We take another set of commercials. Do stay tuned as we have more interesting stories lined up for you.
To create a positive difference in people's lives, one must first understand the way people live. At Survenda, we're here for our community, our partners, and our future, as a nation and as a continent.
Back in 1997, we decided we were going to create this family journey into a bigger opportunity, and created a business called Survenda, which meant save nations to develop Africa.
It's always important to give back to the people. The government cannot do everything, but as business entities, we'll be able to reach a lot of people.
From our humble beginnings in the telecoms and mining sectors to our work in energy and development projects, we know how important it is to be true to our roots.
Our services have to be diversified so that we don't depend on one income stream.
back in the village. I was growing up hunting and doing everything that a village boy would like to do. When you're hunting, you don't depend on one trap, for example. You have to have many traps. So those survival skills brought into the business created opportunities that we learned from a young age that you can't survive with just one product. Survenda Group involves Survenda Management, which is a consulting, Survenda Express, which is a corporate branding company, Survenda Electric, which is a manufacturer of energy-saving bulbs, Survenda General Insurance, which is a general insurance company, Survenda Fresh Produce, Cyber Africa, which is a center for just dealing with cyber security.
Now, Survenda is combining local knowledge with international expertise. It's time to be a part of Zambia's rising success and Africa's exciting future.
We are a gateway into Africa, and now we are praying with global companies who are coming to Zambia for opportunities and to look for companies that are homegrown. And we are proud to be one of those.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with the news. In international news, thousands of refugees and migrants trying to reach the Mediterranean are facing extreme rights abuses, including torture, sexual assault, and even death. And the UNHCR is warning nearly half of the violence is perpetrated by those supposed to enforce the law. We monitored Al Jazeera.
The harrowing journey through the desert to Libya and across the sea to Europe can take weeks or even months. Migrants and refugees fleeing war, poverty and persecution face not only scorching temperatures, but what the UN describes as unspeakable brutality and inhumanity.
I'm not getting used to read those chilling testimonies on those dark statistics that are in the report. This is unacceptable.
A UN investigation based on thousands of interviews outlined stories of sexual violence and torture, even death. And it found half of the violence was perpetrated by security forces, immigration officers or border guards.
Whereas in the past we believed that it was mainly smugglers and traffickers, yet yes, they are key perpetrators of violence, but the primary perpetrators of violence are people who are supposed to protect.
The UN found that in 2018 and 19, at least 1,750 people died before reaching the Mediterranean, making it one of the most deadly routes for refugees and migrants in the world. And it thinks that number is just the tip of the iceberg. It says the abuses experienced on these overland routes have remained largely invisible, with more attention on the ocean, where hundreds of people drown every year. This week alone, hundreds have been brought ashore in Europe, rescued from sinking and overcrowded boats. They are the lucky ones. Others are sent back to war-torn Libya to be held in detention centres, often, the UN says, in appalling conditions. On Monday, 3 Sudanese migrants were shot dead on their return to Libya when they tried to escape.
We have to understand that countries like Libya, who is in conflict, civil war, people are dying, there is a huge displacement, is not a safe port.
The UN report calls for accountability and for the international community to show that it cares whether people like this live or die. Alexia O'Brien, Al Jazeera.
We now get into sports news. Zanaco Football Club has been awarded 3 points and 3 goals from the unplayed match against Forest Rangers Football Club. Both clubs had written to the Football Association of Zambia FAZ, of which the matter was tabled before the disciplinary committee on Monday, 27th July 2020. The disciplinary committee considered all written evidence where it was resolved beyond reasonable doubt that Zanaco be awarded 3 points points in accordance with Article 109 of 77 of the FAR's disciplinary code. That sports item brings us to the end of sports news. But before we go, a look at the headlines. Government releases 5.2 million kwacha towards the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. President Edgar Lungu not inspirational in safeguarding national morals gears. Copper prices improved despite negative shocks of COVID-19. And in international news, refugees face rights abuses in their Mediterranean journey. And in sports news, Zanaco Football Club has been awarded 3 points. We now look at the Camnet verse of the day, which is coming from the book of 1 Corinthians 3 verse 16. And it reads, "Don't you yourselves know that you are God's sanctuary and that the Spirit of God lives in you?" This has been Camnet TV News, not just another channel. I have been your anchor, Liseli Kanyanga Mobanga. God bless.